SA Express is expected to provide an update on its state of affairs. Now, last week it had its planes grounded due to outstanding payments to Airports Company South Africa. This is not the first time the airline's flights have been stopped. In May, the Civil Aviation Authority revoked the airline safety certificates. Let's listen in now live.
Nothing's been announced or finalized at this point, so I can't say more than that. But we do believe that what we are receiving, or what we expect to receive, will be sufficient, certainly for the short term, and to enable us to reintroduce a high level of stability into our operation, sort of hit the 90-odd% OTP that we aim for, and to improve the reliability of the operation. And we do believe that what that will do, of course, is it will improve our profitability quite substantially. It improves our passenger numbers. It improves our average fares as well. And yeah.
Could I ask for a ballpark figure on the working capital requirements? I know finances are subject to confidentiality, of course, but the ballpark figure, last time we know about 1.2 million tickets going.
Well, in terms of, what we would have based our projections on, it's also public knowledge that what we had requested the guarantee for was a 300 million facility. And if we were to receive in the region of that amount, then it would be more than sufficient to ensure that SA Express is able to operate efficiently without running into problems once again.
News. I'm just wondering, all of the issues, if you want to call it that SA Express has gone through over time, starting with last year, have they had any impact on staff?
No doubt, they would actually have impact on staff. Firstly, when we were actually grounded, we did lose some of our operational people as part of that process. But having said that, we were not uncomfortable to have actually lost them, because before the grounding, we are staffed up for 22 aircraft. And it's 22 aircraft, that we do not actually have, because some of those were leased aircraft from other companies, which we then returned as part of the turnaround strategy. So, in fact, we are currently finalizing a process of right-sizing the organization, because our fixed costs are a little bit on the high side. I think that actually has made it into the media space, as well, that we are in the process of right-sizing. So that's on the I think that's how it basically would affect staff. But I think that we're also encouraged, as the chairperson actually indicated, that the people that remain within our system are totally committed to the organization. And if anything, part of, or the result of the grounding is that it's actually allowed us to be able to identify even additional skills that people actually had and were not utilizing, because people came to the party and started ready to be multi-skilled as part of driving the process of the return to service.
So I don't think my question on Titumbu was dealt with.
No, on that, I think my response was that I cannot speak on behalf of the shareholder. But what I did say was that it is out there that indeed the shareholders, being DPE and National Treasury, are committed, or have made an announcement that they would be looking to integrate all of the state aviation assets, airline assets. And that we believe that possibly the statement that the minister made is aligned to that, to driving towards the integration of the airlines.
That's what for me. I get an impression from the statement that you have a plan going forward. What's new that you're going to be doing to improve the status of the airline you haven't been doing, say, before? I understand from the CEO about the inherent corruption and that possibly has been rooted out. But what's new about SA Express now?
I think the first thing is that for us it was actually going back to what SA Express was actually set up to do, which is to focus on operating secondary markets and focus on the markets that we know that our services actually required. I think in the past we began to spread ourselves too thin and even started to operate on routes that really should not have been an SA Express type route. So one of the key things that we're doing right now is making sure that we focus our operations out of Johannesburg and out of Cape Town, but from both of those hubs, operating into the smaller markets. Second to that is that we also think that there's a huge opportunity for SA Express to open up more markets into the secondary regional space. So today, SA Express is the only operator that flies between Johannesburg and Lubumbashi. And when SA Express introduced Johannesburg-Lubumbashi, there was hardly any traffic, or there wasn't a sense of any traffic between those two markets. But in identifying that as a market, it's now grown where we're actually operating a daily service. It's a secondary entry point because everybody knew about Kinshasa and there were services to Kinshasa. We think we have a much bigger role to play in a similar fashion to other destinations in the regional space. That's one. Second to that is that obviously it's about increasing the utilization of our aircraft. And increasing our utilization of our aircraft is ensuring that we have the correct number of aircraft and that we're actually using them effectively. So that's the second part, that we're going to be focusing on. And then, most importantly, it's not about just generating revenue, but it's about ensuring that the costs are aligned with the operation that we run. Hence the earlier comment about the right sizing of the organization to make sure that that's aligned to the current operation that we run. But there are other things. So when we talk about these contracts that were there previously, some of them we've already dealt with to date because we've gone out and we've cancelled all of those contracts where we were being charged 30% and 40% more than what we should be paying because there was a middleman that was actually part of the contracting process, which we do not think is necessary for going forward. We've also been able to go back and renegotiate even some of the contracts that will be used in going forward, but to try and get reductions on some of those contracts, and specifically that relates to the leasing of our aircraft. So there is work that has already been done to date, but there's a lot more that needs to be done to ensure that the fixed costs are aligned to the operation. We think that we're on the right track, and the reason why we think we're on the right track is that today, if we look at all of the routes that we operate to, all of those routes are profitable on an operating level. But when you add the fixed costs, this is where we then experience the problems, which clearly indicates that we've chosen the correct routes, but we need to fix our cost base. And that's what we're working on right now.
If I can just add, so from a board perspective, I think what the immediate, based on what has happened in grounding, is that we focused on getting the airline up to a stable level, to make sure everything runs appropriately, it's put in the position where it can operate efficiently. And I think that was the focus. Going forward, as the CEO said, obviously we're going to look at innovative ways as to how we reduce costs and how we increase revenue. And that's what we're going to be looking at going forward. But right now, our current focus is about ensuring the stability, getting those additional planes up and running, servicing the existing routes, and making sure that, as the CEO said, getting the right size for this airline. Looking at, obviously, integration into the SAA network, etc. So that's our current focus. But that doesn't stop us from looking at innovative ways as how we take this airline forward.
Are all the routes now operational since last year? Are they?
The CEO can talk more about this, but my understanding, we've only got 6 aircraft in the air at the moment. Am I correct?
No, so in terms of routes, we are actually operating all of the routes that we're intended to operate.
Those are live pictures coming from a briefing being held by the top brass of SA Express, of course, in the news for the last few weeks for all the wrong reasons. The top brass there speaking about a need to refocus on the core business model of SA Express, which is to service secondary routes and not to the main metros, as does the parent company SAA. They speak there of a need to reduce costs while figuring out how to increase revenue and, of course, more importantly, ensuring stability at SA Express. We'll be bringing you more on that briefing.